Nintendo hasn't always valued anniversaries. Interviewed on the Shine Sparkers podcast in 2022, Nintendo veterans turned podcast superstars Kit and Krista related a story where they asked Nintendo to celebrate an anniversary, and their response was simply, "Who cares?" Since then, anniversary events have been extremely inconsistent. I don't normally think of 35 as being a key anniversary, but that didn't stop 2020 having a Super Mario 35th Anniversary Direct with a host of announcements. Meanwhile, Zelda's equivalent anniversary passed with barely a whimper. But as Pokémon Day has become an annual fixture in the Nintendo calendar, and with Mario Day starting to pick up steam, what is Nintendo's view of anniversaries? Firstly, let's recall that Nintendo is an incredibly unsentimental company in many ways. They are, finally, opening a museum to their history, but even then, much of their gaming records remain buried. They are future-focused on what is new and surprising, and ultimately, of course, these anniversaries are a vanity exercise unless they translate into sales for them. It's also generally to their advantage to be fleet of foot in terms of their scheduling with announcements, making sure they avoid unexpected events in the industry or even in the wider news cycle to try to maximise their impact. The unpredictability around Nintendo Directs seems to only increase the chatter around them, and in those years such as 2018 and 2020, and indeed 2024, where Directs don't follow a predictable pattern, the level of speculation often reaches nigh on thermonuclear proportions. Still, I think the emergence of Pokémon Day has been instructive for them. Pokémon Directs have become a regular fixture of the calendar in recent years, but their history dates back to 2013. In that time period, there were Pokémon Day Directs in 2016 and 2019 before the day became a regular fixture from 2021 onwards. This seems to have established a trend in recent years whereby the Pokémon company shares half-yearly updates in February and August. On the one hand, this maps beautifully onto the anniversary and half-anniversary dates for the franchise, but of course, they also map on to the end of the financial year and the first half of the financial year as well. Still, the advantage of choosing a specific day for Pokémon is simply visibility. If more and more people start to realise that the day itself is focused on Pokémon, search engine traffic increases and the potential for big-time sales increases likewise. How would we see evidence of this? Well, let's look at Google searches for Pokémon Day. What we see is an erratic series of spikes largely mapping onto release dates for games, a larger spike in 2007 for the Western release of Pokémon Diamond and Pearl, but no major uptick until 2016. The announcements of Pokémon Go the previous September hadn't significantly moved the dial in terms of searches for Pokémon specifically, but the 2016 Pokémon Day Direct, also the direct for the franchise's 20th anniversary, not only led to a massive surge in interest, but the term Pokémon Day continued to be searched for with progressively higher spikes around recent directs in recent years. This in itself is no surprise. Pokémon Directs would also receive public interest, but the advertising focus being around a day rather than an event gives a much broader locus of interest. Toys, mobile phone apps and other media being launched on this day gives the potential for the company to make sales across the franchise, not just in the field of games. Indeed, many stores and sites do their own Pokémon Day promotions to zhuzh up interest during the rather fallow sales period after Christmas. A similar trend has started to occur with Mario. Mario's default level of interest from search terms actually peaked between 2009 and 2011, and even the Mario movie didn't quite restore the term to its previous heights. But the Mario Day search term has become more and more successful, first being searched for in 2016 and growing consistently until exploding in the last couple of years. In 2024, having Shigeru Miyamoto come out to tease a movie and date a couple of games felt particularly significant in the day's history. These were reasonably big announcements, but ones that could easily have folded into another Nintendo Direct. Perhaps it's a function of the lack of material to release in this period that made Nintendo want to focus on Mario Day as an outlet for announcements, but I also think they see the value in capitalising on the day itself. Of course, only a few years ago, March the 10th would not necessarily have been the most obvious date for an anniversary for Mario, with the 13th of September being more commonly used as the anniversary of the original Famicom Super Mario Bros. Title. This now offers Nintendo the luxury of twice yearly Mario Focus Directs, should it wish. My 90% expectation is that Pokémon Day will be celebrated next year, and I'm also 70% sure that Mario Day will be celebrated as well. So why these franchises, and are they likely to do the same with other franchises? I think the key difference between Mario and Pokémon compared to, say, Zelda, Splatoon or Metroid is the volume of content. Not just multiple games per year, but also toys, audiovisual content, books and other merchandise rides off the back of these franchises. An average Mario or Pokémon fan might focus only on the games or perhaps only on the LEGO sets. A Focus Day gives the opportunity to promote across the franchise and to reach people who might not normally be interested in one aspect or another of what is being sold. It also provides an attention-grabbing way of drawing in social media and even traditional media. This year, Pokémon Day was reported on the BBC's child-focused news programme, Newsround. On the other hand, there's very little reason for Nintendo to promote Donkey Kong Day. However much they might want to big up their Simian Supremo, at most they will promote a couple of games and maybe the odd plush toy. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. And what other days might they promote? Animal Crossing was huge for them, but it's focused on being an all-year-round play experience, so celebrating particularly Animal Crossing Day would be rather odd. They definitely don't want to draw attention to the anniversary of the Nintendo Switch's release, as the last thing they want to do is associate their current console with aging. And once the new system supersedes it, there's no reason to focus on that, as they all want to put their spotlight on the next thing. Similarly, the anniversary of Nintendo's founding in 1889 could be used as a locus for all things Nintendo, but since the majority of its history is far broader than video gaming, having the media pick up on Hanafuda cards, taxis and love hotels might not be seen as maximally commercially advantageous. The company's 130th anniversary passed with barely a mention, and I expect future anniversaries to be similarly low-key. That doesn't mean that all anniversaries are to be ignored. In Japan, the 30th anniversary of Mother is receiving a lot of attention, but again, there is a lot of supplementary merchandise. This makes more likely that the 10th anniversary of Splatoon will be a more significant event, especially if it coincides with the announcement of Splatoon 4. I'd put at 70% the odds of a Splatoon 10th anniversary event of some description, and 30% the chance of a dedicated Splatoon anniversary direct, even if it is only in Japan, where the franchise is ultra popular. It's not necessarily the case that franchises need to be huge to receive attention though. I think the odds are a little higher for Metroid to receive attention in its own day, especially around its 40th anniversary in 2026. For one thing, 2026 will be 5 years since Metroid Dread, and there's a strong chance we could get another Sakamoto and Mercury Steam developed game. But, more than that, if Metroid Prime 4 does better than the franchise's traditional history, it would represent an opportunity to build up a series that historically has underperformed. With Metroid Dread, Metroid Prime Remastered, Metroid Prime 4 and potentially a new title, plus older games on NSO, Amiibo and other items, they might see this as an opportunity to build up interest around Samus. This would be particularly valuable if they were interested ultimately in building a film or television franchise around the blonde bounty hunter, which might make sense given that Metroid has always appealed more to the Western audience and has always had strongly cinematic tones and influences. I think any formal recognition of Metroid's 40th is still a low chance, about 30%, but it could have strategic benefits and might only take place in the form of email mailouts. However, if there's one day that might rise to prominence in the next years, it is, of course, Zelda Day. Zelda anniversaries have been big deals before, and the Zelda franchise is usually nostalgic in nature, frequently remastering and re-releasing titles. There are concerts and events, plus a forthcoming film to broaden the series from a niche franchise to a third multimedia juggernaut in Nintendo's star system. I think there's a 90% chance that Zelda's 40th gets a significant push, but I think it's unlikely that Zelda Day will join Pokémon Day and Mario Day as the particular time when Zelda is celebrated. For one thing, the anniversary falls on an inconvenient date. The 21st of February is 6 days before Pokémon Day and only 2.5 weeks before Mario Day. It's possible to have too much of a good thing here. Having Mario Day and Pokémon Day share a similar time frame is manageable, since they are at least a week clear from each other and are largely run by separate companies. While Nintendo owns just under a third of Pokémon, the decisions are still run out of the Pokémon company, and so the onus isn't fully on Nintendo. Also, Zelda just isn't the kind of franchise that can sustain that level of attention. Yes, there has been an evident push for annual releases, with most recent years having a new Zelda title or even occasionally two, but the vast majority of these are remakes and remasters because fully fledged new Zelda titles are difficult beasts to make, and putting the focus and therefore the pressure on the Zelda team to split their attention and generate content for promotional purposes is the exact opposite of Nintendo's standard MO. But if you think Duck Hunt Day or Kid Icarus Week need to become major fixtures on the calendar going forward, please let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, check out one of these videos on screen for another Nintendo forecast.